Welcome everyone to our second episode of the Women in Medicine series, a virtual event Credabl is hosting this March to share the powerful stories, insights and experiences of women in medicine in celebration of International Women's Day. My name is Kelly Gall and I'm from Team Credabl here in Victoria, and today I will be your host. One of the things that I love the most about my work is the amazing people I get to speak to along the way. I've had the pleasure of doing this for over 15 years, and when I met Dr. Safinah Hambali, I was so impressed with her motivation and positive attitude. Sure, it was a really sunny day and we ran way over time at our meeting as it felt like we were old friends connecting, but I clearly remember walking away knowing this was a woman to watch. Her energy and enthusiasm is infectious, the right kind that we need in the world right about now. And I'm very happy and pleased that she's here to join us this evening. When Safinah embarked on the journey of opening her own private dental practice in the Melbourne suburb of Northcote, she certainly didn't anticipate, as I suppose nobody did, over 100 days of lockdown that was coming her way and the impact that would have on her new business. Through it all, she kept a smile on her face. I'm sure there were some touchy moments, I know there were, along the way, and I'm excited, as I said, to share her story with all of you tonight, so thank you for tuning in. Before we begin, just a little bit of housekeeping, please. This is an interactive conversation, so please feel free to share your questions so we can answer them following the chat. You can submit your questions in the live event Q&A section on the right-hand side of your screen, and we'll cover off as many of these as we can at the end. If it's not already there, you can click the button with a couple of speech bubbles and a question mark, and that will actually activate the panel for you. For any of the Android users out there, there will be a slight audio delay when you type into the Q&A section, but obviously the audio will return, so just hang in there. If you want to test it out, we can certainly jump in the chat box now and you can let us know where you're joining from today. Maybe a woman that inspires you. Okay, I can see there's a couple coming through, so let's get started. Hi Safinah, nice to have you with us today. You completed your dentistry degree at Melbourne University and you love the challenging nature of your profession. Now I know it's always been a dream of yours to open your own clinic, but could you share a bit of your career background and where this burning desire came from?
Hi, Kelly. Thank you for having me today. I'm super excited to share my story. But if we have to go with like day dot or the starting point, pretty much, me and my family migrated to Australia from when I was about 10 years old. And I always wanted to pursue a sort of a career in the health sort of industry. And pretty much like I just wanted to sort of make an impact, bring change sort of thing. And, dentistry as a pathway didn't come to me when I was very, very young, but it came to me throughout my uni days. I wouldn't say I wanted to be a dentist at the age of 15 or when I first came into uni, but I worked out from very early on that it was something that would work best for me. It would be the best thing in my life. And I think it's definitely having my own practice is definitely the dream. The more every day that I'm a dentist, I'm kind of like, this is definitely what I'm supposed to be, what I should be. So pretty much that's how I kind of fell into dentistry. But again, that was that passion about, doing your, having that challenge. Like, you talk about how I love the challenging nature of dentistry, but boy, opening a practice is definitely a challenge in itself. I definitely chose maybe one of the hardest challenges that I could in my career. But to be honest, when I opened the doors and every day I walk into this place, which, my practice here, every day I walk into it, I'm pinching myself being like, is this really happening? Because when it's the dream, when it's from your heart, it really makes a huge difference. When you're doing it for the right reasons, the feeling that you get every day and what you're trying to do when you're trying to, reach your dream and share your dream, share your passion with everyone around you, with your patients, with my staff, with anyone that walks across the street. When someone messages the Instagram page being like, I love the reception, I love the logo, or someone notices our neon tooth at the front, like all those moments really bring a smile to my face. And when I tell my people that I know, I say my clinic is really beautiful, I truly mean it from the bottom of my heart. So that's definitely where I sort of landed. And I think, every day I'm very grateful for it. I'm thankful for where I've got to. So yeah, that's, I guess, a good introduction to myself.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's quite interesting to hear that it's like a natural evolution for you, that it wasn't something that was a burning desire to be a dentist from day one. It's something that I suppose revealed itself to you and you gravitated towards it over time. So it's quite nice to know that that's part of your journey, and that, like, to hear, like I said, your enthusiasm is amazing, right? So the one thing that jumps out of me there, I suppose, is the challenge. Yeah, so maybe 2020 was just built for you, because we actually met way back in 2019 to have a chat about your plans for your practice. The world was a much different place back then. Yeah, so, and then we've obviously continued the conversation into 2020, and let's be honest, we knew that there was a health alert to be wary of. Probably didn't maybe appreciate the gravity of what was heading our way, and it would have been very difficult to anticipate over 100 days of lockdown. Great challenge. If ever you needed a challenge, to have a go at that. Tell us, can you talk through what happened? I suppose what was going through your mind? I know we had plenty of conversations along that journey, and there was a few ups and downs, but tell us.
Well, look, when I talk like today in 2021, we've got past 2020, but when I think, I think for the rest of my life, when I think about 2020, it would actually be a very memorable year for me, definitely, with its ups and its downs. But I said to myself, I say to people, if I can open this practice in a pandemic, I think I can do anything. There were two main things that I really learned about myself last year. The first thing was my resilience and how resilient I was throughout the year. And the second thing is that, Safinah, you're a huge risk taker. Now, I know I take calculated risks, but I think last year, when I just pushed forward and I just kept myself going, I knew that this would be the biggest risk that I would take. But I think it was either you go all in or you just don't do it, sort of thing. And you don't want to go through life with sort of regrets or anything like that. But I think what was great during that time was that I had a lot of people around me. I surrounded myself with a lot of people who really supported me and had a lot of belief. And because of that, I think I had a lot of belief in myself. And definitely it was like a roller coaster ride, There was like sort of problem present, and some I would find a solution. I think there's one story I always remember this particular thing. One of the early stages, COVID was already happening. I had my technician in here measuring the rooms up to make sure that my equipment was going to fit in and all that sort of stuff. And I remember he comes to me, he's like, Safinah, all panic in his face. He's like, the machine, this room is too small. We're like 10 centimeters short. It doesn't fit. And he's like thinking, oh my goodness, this girl's dream is going down the drain because the machine doesn't fit in this room. And in my head, obviously, I had a little bit of a panic or a little bit of like, uh-oh, what's happening? And I looked at the little room that we had and I was like, well, what if we put it on this wall? Like, instead of having on that wall, let's put it on this wall. And then he pulls out his measuring tape and he measures it up. It's like, oh, perfect, there's heaps of space. And I remember being like internally being like, phew, but also be like, oh, we found a solution. So yes, I felt like the problems, like everything, because there was lots of things that was not in my control. COVID, I couldn't control it. Like, it's something like when you do a plan, you put your risks out, or you kind of anticipate what might go wrong or something that you need to prepare for. You can't go into it naive and think, oh, it's all butterflies and rainbows.
Yeah.
Ready for whatever's going to throw at you. And I remember thinking, COVID was definitely a huge, not a rainbow for sure.
Yeah.
So, every sort of challenge and obstacle that I faced, I pretty much had to not panic and cry in a corner or give up. I literally took a step back, took a deep breath, and find a solution, adapted to the situation, And I think that's why I say that I've definitely learned, Safinah, you're very resilient. Like, you could know what, like, it's not for everyone. Like that situation, the things that the decisions I had to make, just the mental strength to get through each day and each stage as things were so uncertain. Was a huge. It's basically the mental aspect of it was the huge. Not like, you know, financial, not physical, not health. Like it was literally mental health. Mentally, I had to push myself through, and I was very fortunate. I'm very thankful and grateful for all the support I had from everyone around me, and how, like, and especially when we did get to the point where the doors opened, like when everyone was so happy and proud of the situation, like it felt like every single moment was worth it, and every single moment I learned something, and like it just made me stronger and stronger. So yeah, I always tell my people I'm the crazy one who opened the practice in the pandemic. So yeah, that was my 2020.
Yeah, amazing.
So
what better way to be memorable? You'll never forget the year, right?
Definitely not.
I suppose riding alongside from I suppose how we support our clients too, like those challenges about, you know, you mentioned about your equipment and just being able to adapt and keep moving, they're quite like they're common things in a practice setup anyway, let alone everything that I suppose is amplified because your grand opening date was like right in the thick of things, coming out the tail end a little bit, but we still didn't have any clarity either then, right? So it's, I suppose, being able to roll with the punches and the resilience, and I think it's an amazing attribute, and to be able to back yourself in to be able to do that. I think, like, it's obviously great for you to have that, and there's obviously a lot of media that we take on board on a day-to-day basis, and I think if you get caught, it can get very heavy, right? So probably trying to dial in for what you need to know to be able to keep the facts straight, and then go, okay, I'm not going to let that wash over me today, because every morning you walk through the doors and you're a leader to your team. And obviously you can feel your passion about the service and the community that you want to support. Tell me, how, I suppose, do you lead your team, and how do you keep them motivated and exceeding patient expectations? Even when you don't know what's around the corner, how do you do it?
Well, look, I think that was one of, like, people always ask me why you're opening a practice, and I think one of the biggest things and one of the big discussions we had, me and you, Kelly, was pretty much, I want to see, can I lead a team and be successful? You know, can the people around me support me and live the dream, or have, like, basically live the vision I have? And I think one big thing, yes, definitely, especially last year, there's lots of noise in the background. And I think one of the things, like, I'm generally a very positive person. I'm a glass half full person. So for me, like, what kind of leadership I had to be was, I had to be the positive person. If I was the leader who was down, who was unhappy, negative, sad, like, you know, couldn't find a solution, angry, upset. Yes, you do have moments where your emotions are just a roller coaster. You're like happy, like extremely happy, and then extremely sad one point. But as hopefully the leader I want to be, I had to be the one who had the positive attitude, the right attitude to make sure that the dream is alive, because I had that vision and I had to make sure all the parts were working towards that. So I think that's how I have to, and I still have to be that every day. Whatever happening, whatever happening in the background, I still, like, when the patients walk in, big smile, you know, I want to make sure everyone's like, you know, everyone, because I want to go to work happy. I want everyone around me to be happy, because I think that helps me and makes it easier for me to be the person I want to be. Like, I don't want to be someone who's not me, because the person, I'm the one, like my sister always tells me that I smile too much, but I just can't help myself. I know when I'm 50, 60, I'll have heaps of wrinkles because of all my smiling from all my years, but that's all right. I'll work on it later. But I think, like, even for example, like in this sort of situation, what I reminded myself was that I had to just live in the moment. Like, I couldn't be bogged down by what might happen. And that you have to plan in advance at the same time, but you just I had to enjoy, like, I actually really, really enjoyed the process at the same time. For example, lockdown for me was a good and bad thing. Yes, it delayed things, it made things tougher, but it gave me a lot of time as well that I probably wouldn't have if the year was a normal year. you know, if let's say I opened in 2019, I would still be working a lot, and I had to just squeeze in the whole opening a practice and all that sort of stuff. So in the second lockdown here in Melbourne, I kind of like, I took a step back from clinical work, and I actually became a bit of a builder tradie. So I would rock up in my tradie outfit, of tradie clothes, and we basically managed the trades that were on site. So I was able to make sure everything was COVID safe, make sure everyone was doing the right thing, make sure things were done how I wanted to do. Yeah. And it was about 4 or 5 weeks of me being this, like, I called myself a tradie. I kind of really enjoyed it. I had my camping chair, chilling at the corner. If they need anything, they're like, Safinah, is it okay if we stick this here? And I'm like, yep, that's good. Like, I was like that person. And I actually really enjoyed it for 4 or 5 weeks. And I think I had a good taste of that life, but probably definitely not how it normally should be. But once I got back into clinic, I was like, yep, this is where I want to be. Like, I obviously love dentistry, but it was a good opportunity for me to do something else and make use of that time. So I think, like I said, I had to live in the moment, and I still do every day.
Yeah, amazing. Do you know, I think we probably take for granted a little bit about, I suppose, what we bring to the table when we're with our colleagues, our friends, our family, and our peers. And I'm a big believer, I suppose, in that, like with your energy and your enthusiasm, that you lift and then everyone lifts and you all go along for the ride and the journey. And sometimes there might be a little bit of self-selection at play where people might go, actually, that's not for me, that's okay. And that's actually okay, because you want to have a team and a culture that when your patients walk through the door, that they are feeling that too, to be able to move forward with you. And I just think it's such an amazing attribute in what I suppose is being, you know, the last 18 months have been a nice little roller coaster ride, but it probably also talks to your strengths of maintaining that and being able to work that, and I suppose it's your desire, the entrepreneurship, to be able to make something your own and roll that out and make it happen. Obviously, we've touched on the fact that it can be quite overwhelming, and that's probably not too many hours of downtime because your mind's constantly thinking, what's next, what's next? I suppose, having done this for the first time, and now when you reflect back where you started from, what is maybe one thing, maybe two things that you wish you'd known sooner, that might have changed the way you went about things, or, you know, helped, I suppose, just for people tuning in?
Well, that's a tough question. Like, I don't like to live life with regrets or anything, but really you want to always reflect on what you do and the decisions you make, and always make sure you make better decisions or not make mistakes again. I think one thing to note, that everyone's journey is unique. Definitely, I think my story or my journey was definitely unique. You can't carbon copy it. You know, I don't like, you know, everything that happened, you couldn't really predict and all that. So you couldn't plan. You could, like, things were just happening that I just had to go with the flow. But I think if I, like, when I sit here and I think about the last 18 months and the last 12 months, what I would have learned or told myself when I first met you, Kelly, you know, when I first started the first few meetings and everything, when things were starting, when the pieces started to come together, like, one thing I had to I had to sort of coach myself through the process. And one of the things I realized, and there were hard moments, there were good moments, there were great moments, was that I was like, you know, I'm crazy enough that I decided to do pretty much most of it by myself, or I'm kind of sort of take most control or all control of this, like, journey. And at the end of the day, I realized at one point, and a couple of points, I had to remind myself multiple times that as much as I bounce ideas of people, speak to lots of different people, like, people can give you advice, but it's up to you how you filter that advice, what you take on board, what you don't take on board, how you sort of interpret that, and what, like, how you approach those things, and what solutions you, like, or what, you know, you talk about to senior people, you know, maybe what mistakes they made, and you're trying to think about yourself, like, how you would approach that. But at the end of the day, I had to tell myself, even if I'm bouncing ideas, no one could make the decisions. At the end of the day, all the decisions, fortunately, came down to me, whether they're good or they're bad. And I had to take ownership of every decision, every responsibility. So it's a huge thing for someone who's young or who's, like, in this sort of position. But that was literally like, if I had to tell myself something, I hope, like I wish, or not wish, but maybe my younger self realizing this sooner, that, you know, you can't, no one else could make the decision. I had to make the final call. So that was a big thing. But I think when you start from a place where you have that vision, you have the right intention, it's your dream, it's coming from the right place, it sort of backs up these things, you know, you kind of really have to believe in yourself. And you know, it didn't prompt me to give up or anything like that. So that really is what I might tell myself in early 2020 when the journey was sort of starting. I would have said to myself, Safinah, you got to be strong, because whether this goes successfully or not successfully, it's on you, and you will be the one who will be most happy or most proud of it. And that was a huge thing there. And I think like yeah, that was that's something I would reflect on. Like that's definitely, and it's still something that plays in my mind now, where a lot of decisions I have to make. So it's tough, but it's rewarding at the same time.
Yeah, yeah. Do you know too, I think like, because you can obviously speak to so many different people and they've all had their experience or they've got their input for you, but you really, like you said, need to be strong and filter the information for you and what works for you. And I'm a big believer too, like when you bounce out of bed every morning and you're pretty pumped and pretty excited about where you're going and what you're doing, I feel like there's a natural flow and the success will come as a result of having that mindset and that attitude. And you can't actually fake it. That's actually the thing. So it's either in you or it's not, and it's okay if, like I said before, it's okay if it's not, but if it is in you, like it is something to really capitalize and drive you forward. So like I think it's quite a good lesson, and I think for a lot of what we do from our side on a day-to-day basis, we speak to people who want to buy a practice, want to set up, and people who don't want to own either, and are happy to go to work and go home, and that's perfectly fine. And that's, I suppose, what makes it so interesting too, is to be able to share in people's journeys, because we're not all the same. So to be able to push that through and make that happen is pretty amazing. And like you said, it's obviously a big learning curve too, because everybody's probably got an opinion. There were probably some naysayers along the way too, and you go, you know what, I'm going to back myself in, I'm going to make this happen. So it's a skill to surround yourself with the right people to support you as well. Obviously, you're like the energy, we've talked about it a few times. You obviously big into food and coffee and all that fun thing, all the fun stuff I suppose Melbourne has to offer. I want to know more about that, but I also want to know how you fill your bucket for yourself every day to keep going and to keep that, because I know you would have ebbs and flows, so that's fine, but obviously on the most of the part, like you said, you're a bucket half full lady. So tell me, what do you do for yourself to keep the mind peaceful, I suppose?
Definitely balance is very important. Like one of the reasons why I chose dentistry, because in my head, I was like, yep, I can have that life balance, you know. Career is like not everything for me, like it's not 90% of my life. Definitely the practice now consumes a lot of my energy, and that pretty much is because that's where it's at. And it's I knew when I decided this journey, it was the right time of my life. I had the energy, like I have the energy to do this, to live the dream. But definitely, you know what, I'm proud of myself when I rock up to the gym. I'm proud of myself when I go out to brunch with my friends. Like I'm proud, like those little things are very, like I still make sure it happens, because I think that balance is important. Like I don't want to always, like when I go home, I make sure, you know, I'm not looking at my phone, you know, I'm just sort of like you know, shutting off from that, like you got to have a break. You have to make sure you find that time. You need to know yourself. You don't want to push yourself to the edge where you can't come back from. So that's like, I remember when I first started initially, when the practice, because I was working quite a lot, and obviously you work kind of 24/7, but I would do, my household knows that on a Sunday, I wash my clothes, you know, you do the grocery shopping, you set up my meals. And I remember thinking, how long will this last? Like how many weeks will this go? We're about 5.5 months since I opened my doors, and it still happens every Sunday. You can see my 6 lunches and my 6 dinners are prepared, because that was really important for me to make sure I have that I'm still eating well, like I actually have food, that I'm eating healthy food. And then even like I'm very like I'm when I go to the gym 2 or 3 times a week, I have a very, very strong network there, and I feel really happy when I'm there. I push myself for that 45 an hour. That's really important. That's to sort of like not think about the practice or your patients or what. It's just about thinking about like make sure that you have all these other finding that balance. So that was a huge part of it. And I think I still love my passions like my coffee and going doing your socializing whenever you can in this sort of time. But you just got to make time for it. I think if you don't make time, you don't want to sit there and be like, oh, I missed out on that, or I didn't really enjoy that moment, because at the end of the day, I'm doing this so I can be happy and feel proud of what I'm doing, not because I want to do this in the future or do that. It's really because it's for myself and my well-being. So you definitely have to find the balance. I think making sure you have those things to counter your work is super important, and I'm sure Kelly, you're a big believer in that.
Yeah, totally. The exercise is so important for the endorphin piece, right? Which I think helps you make better decisions or be able to react and respond to adverse situations, to be able to find it, like you said, you're solution outcome orientated too. So I think they are all part of that process, and looking after yourself and fueling yourself too is a big piece of that. And I think sometimes we get forgetful, and like it's quite nice to see that nearly 6 months in you've still got that structure and your discipline to do that, because you know that you're the best version of you in doing that, and that you're not scrimping on poor food choices or not eating, because you're so busy, or it's a late night for whatever reason too. So I think that's actually a really key piece, and it's probably something we don't probably lean into as often as we should when we talk about business ownership. And I think that's a really nice key point, I suppose, for other people maybe watching this thinking, this is something I'd like to explore. It might be something for me next year or the year after or in 5 years' time. Is there anything else that you might offer? Any little tidbits that you may offer?
Look, I think it doesn't matter whether pandemic, no pandemic, lockdown, no lockdown. I think definitely go for your dreams, pursue it. Don't make excuses for things, like literally just, if you got to just go for it. Like, I think you can't half-heartedly do these things because you don't know what the outcome is. But if the outcome is amazing, then how proud would you be through the ups and downs and all that, the energy you put in and all that. I think one of my biggest advice to anyone who's keen on doing, let's say, opening a practice from scratch, like what I did, is pretty much take it one step at a time, one day at a time, because I think you don't want to overwhelm yourself. It is overwhelming. There are moments when you feel overwhelmed, but I think when you just take it one step at a time, address one issue at a time, one problem at a time, you celebrate one success at a time. I think that's really important, that you take it step by step. And I think today I was thinking about, this conversation that I was going to have, and I remember the day we finally opened, because that date kept changing. I think at one point I'm like, I think Kelly doesn't believe it's happening anymore. Like, I was kind of like, please let it happen. And when it happened, the day when it opened, we had a little sort of I still remember, we had a little ribbon cutting ceremony. So we had a ribbon at the entrance, and I let my parents cut it. And I think that was a big moment for me, watching them, watching that sort of moment when it happened. I still think about that, and I'm like, wow, we got to that point. So I think it was all the struggles, all the tough times, all the emotion was worth it to get to that point, and then and to keep going. And same thing with this practice, one day at a time, 1 week at a time, 1 month at a time, because anything can really happen, and you just have to enjoy every moment. So literally, I say, whatever you're doing, whatever dream you have, whatever path you choose, enjoy it, because you want to look back in the future, in 12 months, in 12 years, thinking, wow, I'm happy, that was great. And you're going to tell the story again, so that's, I think, one of my biggest things I want to share with anyone who's thinking of doing it, because like I said, I'm loving what I'm doing, and I'll hopefully still keep loving it, and yeah, still have the same energy or even a better energy as time progresses. And yeah, I'm excited to see where the next step, or what's the next thing for me.
Yeah, amazing. I have no doubt about it that you will be just as you are, right? And like you've done an amazing job to get to where you are, and I think like it's super important to be able to share that it's not, like you said, all rainbows and unicorns too. Like there are some ebbs and flows that we've got to work on along the way, but you know, when we first met, I remember reading your plans and they were so detailed, but you couldn't plan for anything that came our way. And like it was a constant evolution of the plans, like you said, even your opening date, yeah, with everything that was going on. So it's amazing. You nearly hit your 6-month anniversary. It's very exciting. Tell me, I suppose, what's next? What's your next little peak, next little mountain to climb? What's next for Safinah?
What's next for Safinah? That's a tough one. I think now it's sort of like to see all that hard work that I've put in and see where that takes me, sort of thing. So pretty much it's testing the waters of me, my leadership, my strength. Like you think like if the worst has passed, but sometimes not really. Another thing comes in and you never anticipate it. So what's next for me? I think focusing on really establishing this practice. I think one thing I had to change last year after everything was reset your expectations. So it's really just sort of keep going, and also just sort of like say I enjoy everything that I'm doing and keep enjoying it. Like keep reminding yourself that that's like this is where you want to be. What's next for me? I don't know. I feel like I'm in that next stage where I just need it all to now come together. I'm still like, even though, you know, I'm running this practice and building this practice, I'm always thinking that 10 steps ahead, you know, then the more people to surround myself with, you know, who else is joining this team? Who else is part of this, is going to be part of this journey? Because I remember saying when I first opened the first initial point, like, you know, when you're like sort of on cloud 9, pinching yourself, being like, is this really happening? I remember thinking to myself, I have something special, like, and who am I going to share this special thing with? So even though, you know, I'm busy running the practice, busy being a dentist, I'm still working on learning new things as a dentist, improving my skills, making sure that, you know, I'm still listening to the right advice and basically meeting new people and just expanding and seeing who I want to share this with. Because I think like you wanted the right people to be on your journey. So yeah, what's next? We'll see. Ask me in 12 months.
Well, I'm really looking forward to your first happy birthday anniversary party.
Yep, me
yes.
too.
Yeah, without masks.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed, hey? And so I will now open to the audience. I've got another fan member for our fan club for you, Safinah. So just a little one in from the audience. Your smile is amazing. Don't we know it? Always keep smiling, Safinah. And then in brackets, no offense to your sister. Very sweet, very sweet. So like it's so true, and I think that probably sums up everything that I suppose we've covered off. And I know personally in speaking and spending time with you, Safinah, it's been really good for me as well. So thank you for sharing. I think the one thing that, you know, that what's that old saying? If it's meant to be, it's up to me. Yeah, like there's nothing you can sit back and go, oh well, kind of let that slide. You know, it's really being an active participant and conscious, I suppose, in those decision making. You've obviously put it all out there and you've left nothing in the tank or nothing on the table. And hey, if there's some mistakes or things that you learn from along the way, as long as you're learning from them, that's what they're for, right? So you mentioned earlier too, I think the big thing, especially as a mother of a 6-year-old daughter, the resilience piece. Yeah. So last year was a really big eye opener in going, we can have the best plans, but it doesn't actually mean that that's what's going to happen. And if it doesn't, it's okay. We're just going to be able to pick ourselves up and keep moving. So, and I think it's exactly what you've shared with us today. So I wanted to say thank you so much for sharing your journey with us. And I look forward to what the future brings for you and riding alongside you, Safinah. So thank you.
Thank you, Kelly, so much. Like, I am so humbled by this opportunity to speak and share my experience. Hopefully someone out there is a bit inspired, or someone you inspired one person. I think, like, I remember when I was invited to do this, I was like, oh, I'm not that amazing. Like, I'm really a nobody, but look, I'm so humbled by the opportunity, and I really thank you, because you were one of the early people that I met that really sort of, like, I think definitely I agree with you. When we first met and we spent all that time talking, I was like, oh, this is, like, one of the things I probably didn't mention is throughout the last 20 minutes or whatever, I didn't say that I think one of the things, like, I really built myself through, like, connections and relationships. And I think a lot of the journey and a lot of the steps were about trusting my gut, feeling who I felt comfortable with, to sort of keep going, because that was really important. It wasn't like because I had to make those decisions, it was important that I felt good about it. But thank you so much for listening to what I had to say. And yeah, thank you very much. Thank you everyone who joined in and is watching this.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you. I think obviously we very much vibing on the same little energy channel here, because it's exactly the same. And it actually makes a really big difference. And that's the people that you want to be with and supporting, like to make it happen. So maybe next time we can deep dive in a little bit further and do a recount. 12 months on, what's going on? 2 years on, what does that show? 7 up. We can keep coming back.
Yeah.
Perfect. So I just want to say thanks again, and we hope that you all enjoyed the conversation, and stay tuned for our next episode. If you'd like to stream any of Credabl's previous webinars, then we have a growing library of fantastic content for you, so make sure you check it out. They're all on the website now, and that's where all our blogs live too. So if you'd like to learn a little bit more or do a little bit of light reading, jump in and go for it. Have a great rest of the week, and we'll see you guys soon. Bye.